resources in there, and Terry will talk about that. First, I want to thank our host here at the Christian Cultural Center, Senior Pastor Reverend A.R. Bernard, and his son, Pastor Jamal Bernard. Thank you for having us here. And thanks for welcoming us here. Actually, again, we were just here on February 28th, too, where we had one of our community-based meetings. That's one in a series of meetings that I spoke about at the beginning of the year in precincts where the crime rate is double the citywide average. We've had 5 so far. We had one in the 7.5, we had one in the 7.3, the 2.5, the 4.0, and the 4.2, and we're doing another one Wednesday night. These meetings have been productive, got a lot of good insights, a lot of good ideas moving forward. It's a long-term strategy, but as we do anything in NYPD, we do it in close partnership with everyone who lives and works here to make sure their streets are just as safe as all the other streets in New York City. And today, while the day in and day out hard work of the men and women of the NYPD continue to drive citywide crime down, it's going to take the full partnership of everyone to push us past the already record lows. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us. And again, that we means not just the NYPD, it means every city agency, our law enforcement partners at the local, state, and federal levels, and of course, all 8.6 million people who live in this great city. We all have a stake in our public safety. The bottom line is this: everyone must listen and take action together. That's how we're going to ensure the quality of life on every block in every neighborhood is improved, and most importantly, that it is sustained. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And Commissioner, again, my admiration and appreciation to you and all the men and women of the NYPD. Another strong month. And as you said, the bigger trend here, unmistakable, continued progress, driving down crime in this city. But that said, we are always watching for specific things we need to do better. And we certainly saw at the early part of this year, we saw some challenges that had to be taken very seriously. We saw an uptick in homicides. We've got more work to do, but it's good to see that that number has started to come down in a real way and that real progress is being made. And that is a testament to what the NYPD does so well, which is to make really fast adjustments to move our officers where they are needed most, to change up on strategies to make sure that we have the right approach for each situation, and that's been the NYPD way. I also want to commend you, Commissioner, and your whole team for the focus on 6 precincts that have particular challenges that we really want to address fundamentally. And I think this is an example of the continued growth of the strategies the NYPD is employing as overall crime has gone down, the ability to pinpoint where we have persistent problems that we want to make a real structural impact on. That's what's going on in these 6 precincts. I think this is a really smart strategy you'll see play out over the course of this year. And it's part of why we're here in East New York to say to people in this community in all 6 precincts that we're not going to stop until we make more fundamental changes and make people safer and make sure they feel safer at the same time. Thank you, in addition to our First Deputy Commissioner Ben Tucker, our Chief of Department Terry Monahan, all the leadership of the NYPD, and a special thanks to our host, Pastor Jamal Bernard. Thank you so much to you, to your family, to everyone at the Christian Cultural Center, one of the great faith institutions in this city, and thank you for all the partnership that we've had over the years, and thank you for the close work you're doing with the NYPD to help keep the community safe. It's very much appreciated. So, I will keep saying it, NYPD never rests on its laurels. This is part of why it's such an extraordinary organization, and it also continues to beat its own record. So once again, NYPD has beaten its own record. Overall, citywide crime is down 7.3% year-to-date compared to the same point last year. And that is, again, part of why we can now focus more energy, more resources on the 6 precincts that we think deserve special attention. That's the 2.5, 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, 7.3, and 7.5. Commissioner and I will be visiting each of these 6 precincts together in the course of the year. And as you heard from the Commissioner, there's a real focus on listening to the community, working with the community, inviting the community in. I have to tell you, Commissioner, I've talked to a lot of people who have been a part of those meetings. They really appreciate that dialogue, and they see it as something that's a real improvement to have that kind of deeper strategic dialogue between NYPD and communities. It fits the vision of neighborhood policing that we have seen is so productive. So we're going to continue with this kind of strategy to deepen it, neighborhood policing, precision policing, the things that are working. And again, particular focus on these 6 precincts. And the folks who live in the 6 precincts, I want them to know very personally, as your mayor, and I know this is true of our commissioner as well, we are focused on improving the quality of your lives. We're focused on making your lives safer, your family's lives safer. And we know that we have the tools in this great department to make sure that happens. Let me just say a few words in Spanish. Año tras año, el NYPD sigue reduciendo el crimen a niveles históricamente bajos. Hemos tenido un aumento en homicidios al empezar este año, pero el NYPD se ha enfocado en los lugares con más problemas y ya estamos viendo resultados. Vamos a seguir luchando cada día hasta que resolvamos estos problemas. With that, I want to turn to our Chief of Crime Control Strategies, Lori Pollock.
Good afternoon. As the mayor said, in March, we saw decreases in all 7 major crimes. We have new all-time lows for March in murder, robbery, burglary, GLA, and total index crime. The robbery record is a record for any month in the CompStat era. Our murders year-to-date show an increase of 9, 69 versus 60. But as I said last month when we were showing an increase in murders, that there are month-to-month fluctuations, not necessarily indicative of a trend. With that being said, the March murder number set a new low for any March with 16 versus 22. When we're talking about murders, it's never good news, but here are some facts about March murders. 38% of March murder incidents are gang-related, and 70% of our March murder victims were killed by firearms. Our March shootings saw an increase of 56 versus 46, an increase of 10, and just over 46% of the city's March shootings occurred in Brooklyn. 85%, or 22, occurred in Brooklyn North, and 55% of Brooklyn North shootings are gang-related. If we drill down even further, we see that the 7-5 precinct, where we are now, for March, recorded 7 shootings versus 1 last March. And along with the 7-7, 7-9, and 8-1, those 4 commands account for the 19 of 21 shootings in Brooklyn North in March. Additional officers have been assigned to Brooklyn North since the beginning of the year, and we have seen a significant increase in gun arrests. Notably, year-to-date, we have seen an increase of 42 gun arrests in the 7-5 precinct, and we have seen an increase of 32 gun arrests in the 8-1. And overall, in Brooklyn North, we have seen an increase of 70 gun arrests year-to-date, 261 versus 191. And we believe our discussions and partnership with the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office will lead to improvements in prosecutions this year. The rape number has been reduced for the first time in over a year, 154 versus 160. What we have seen this month is an increase in same-year reporting, especially in the domestic rape category, which accounts for almost 50% of our March rape investigations. We have seen a slight reduction in reports coming in for occurrences that happened in prior years, and we are cautiously optimistic as it is too soon to tell what the reduction in the rape number means. I would like to reemphasize that the last time we saw reductions in all 7 crime categories was in August 2017. This is the best first quarter or the best start of any year in the CompStat era. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me go into, I know last month we spoke about 4 commands that we were going to be targeting for enforcement and moving personnel in. Start with the Bronx in the 4-3 precinct. During the month of March, that was our best result. No shootings and no homicides in the 4-3 precinct, and they were down in overall crime 18.6%. In the 3-4 precinct, we had 1 shooting, that was a homicide, but total crime was down 27% in the 3-4. In the 113 precinct, we had 3 shootings compared to 1. We had no homicides in the 113. Total crime down 27% in the 113. Our biggest issue came in, again, in Brooklyn North in the 7-9 precinct. 7-9 precinct had 5 shootings during the month of March and 2 homicides during that month. When we look at Brooklyn, specifically the 7-9 and the surrounding commands, as Chief Pollock said, 46% of all shootings that happened in the city in the month of March occurred in the borough of Brooklyn. 39% of those shootings, of all shootings in the city, happened within Brooklyn North. Very concentrated violence within this area. When we look at Brooklyn North during the month, They are up 86% in the amount of gun arrests that they made within this borough. We spoke last month with Eric Gonzalez, the Brooklyn DA, hoping to get increased prosecutions. It's worked very well for the initial stages of the prosecutions. The guns that we are making the arrest on, they are being prosecuted and they are being indicted. What we're trying to look at is what happens after this indictment. And we had Brooklyn North in for a ComStat last week, and it was quite telling. You know, we talk about precision policing and the same individuals associated with violence showing up. Without giving names, just a couple of incidences. We had one individual who came up at the ComStat. He was arrested back in April last year in the Bronx and indicted for possession of a gun. He was out on bail. He gets arrested again in October, indicted for possession of a gun, out on bail. He then becomes the victim of a robbery, gang-related robbery in February. This gang-related robbery, after it occurs, there are 2 retaliatory shootings based upon him being robbed. That individual, again, on the 21st of March, is arrested in a stolen car fleeing from the police. He is still currently out on the streets of Brooklyn. Another individual arrested back in September and indicted for a shooting. He is out on bail. In February, we have him on film on the scene of a gang-related shooting, shots fired. In March, we have him on video again on the scene of a gang-related shooting where someone gets shot. And again, for a 3rd time in March, on the scene of a gang-related shooting. He is still out on the streets of Brooklyn. A 3rd individual pleads guilty to a gun in February of 18. He gets a diversionary program. Since he's in that diversionary program, we have him on film at the scene of a gang-related shooting in January of this year. We have him arrested February 19th in a stolen car, fleeing from the police in Brooklyn. He gets out RO'd immediately, and on February 21st, he's arrested again in a stolen car, fleeing from the police. He, too, is still out on the streets of Brooklyn. These are a small amount of individuals that are out on the streets. It is not a lot of people, but these are the ones that show up consistently in the violence that we're seeing. To deal with the Brooklyn violence as it's picked up, we've moved some of our resources, our SRGs from Queens. We've moved them into Brooklyn for the time being, working in our housing, our PSA 3, which covers the housing in the 7-9 and the 8-1. When we look at PSA 3 so far this year, they're up 12-3 in shooting incidences. All of the housing IRT, which is borough-based resources, are also being put in within those houses. It's a Marcy, Tompkins, Brevoort, Roosevelt. Personnel will be in there on a regular basis, along with cars coming from around the city and housing, converging within these developments to try and stem this violence. This is where we are. So hopefully that as we move forward, this is going to stem some of the violence, and if we can keep some of these people in jail, I think it'll stem it even more.
All right, thanks, Terry. So now we're going to, on topic, crime stats. Tony.
Chief, I'll pick up on what Chief Monahan just talked about. There seem to be 2 or 3 people in cases you were highlighted just a moment ago who were getting into trouble with guns, getting bailed, getting into tougher situations, causing problems, being targeted, triggering possible retaliatory shootings and other incidents around that. I mean, is there a bail issue in the courts that's problematic for you, or is there anything you can do about that? Because bail seems to be an issue out of your control.
Yeah, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at dangerousness. That's an important aspect for us to look at. And I know Terry just had a meeting with the Kings County DA about 2 weeks ago to discuss items such as this. Some of it's out of the control of the DA, some of it's up to the court. But this is how we've gotten to the point where we are. This is how we've reduced crime, by focusing our resources on the people and a small percentage of the population involved in that violence. And it's going to take, as I say constantly, it's more than just the NYPD. It's got to be the prosecutors, and they have to be helpful. And I think we've turned the corner in Kings County, and they understand what the mission is, and that's to keep people safe. Yep.
Particularly in the 7-9, I know you said a lot of these shootings are gang-related, but looking at the 7-9, some of these are clustered so tightly, it's almost like there was like 5 within a 5-block radius, and very close together. Can you talk at all, is this like the same kind of crews you're seeing? Is there a turf thing happening? Like, can you go into any more detail on what the context is here?
Yeah, they're gang-related shootings, and it's the same individuals that you see showing up. That's why I was mentioning these individuals. I'm not going to mention the names of the gangs and give them any publicity, but these are gang-related instances between developments for the most part, shooting at one another, and the same individuals are showing up on these scenes.
Lisa?
Could you give us an idea of some of the strategies that you used in the 7-9 and those other precincts to try to get the numbers down?
It was putting extra resources out there, pulling resources out of other commands into the commands where the violence was, getting a more visible patrol aspect out there to prevent it, getting more detective resources in there, our warrants squad specifically, to get the individuals who are currently wanted, either on warrants or on wanted for certain crimes, getting them picked up, getting them into jail.
And do you have specific numbers on what the 7-9, what the drop was?
7-9 went up in shootings. 7-9 went up from 5 to 2 in shooting incidents during the period, which is related to this violence that was just mentioned. It's crew violence between certain housing developments. So we stepped up last month, and we're putting even more resources in there. It's the 7-9, it's the 8-1, and spilling into the 7-5 precinct right now.
Dean?
You mentioned moving some SRGs from Queens and then housing officers from other boroughs into Brooklyn North. Will it be like a clear show of force where folks in those developments clearly see more cops out there? Or?
Yeah, it's not, Dean, yeah, it's not a show of force. Anytime we move any additional uniform resources from one borough or one precinct to another, we have to make sure that they're properly briefed and that there's an introduction to the community too. You know, this is, although we have an increase in violence in the 7-9, we're still going to continue with the policy of neighborhood policing and precision policing. And if we have to move resources from around the city or around the borough into the 7-9 to make life safer for the people that live there, we will.
I mean, will folks see it? Because some...
Yeah, you will see an increased presence. Yeah, Tony, get your next, Rich.
In the press release that you just gave out, you mentioned the 6 other precincts that are being focused on for community meetings.
Yeah.
You and the mayor showing.
I can see where that could be a little confusing. So we're multitasking here. All right. Yeah, we're multitasking. Believe it or not, we can do that. The 4 precincts that Terry's talking about, that's a short-term strategy. The 6 that I'm focused with on meeting with the community, that's a long-term strategy.
What are you getting from those meetings?
So we've done 5. We're going to do another one Wednesday night. We've been to the 4-0, the 2-5, the 7-3, the 4-2. I'm probably forgetting one. 7-5. Thank you, Phil. And the meetings are about 2 hours long. We have stakeholders from the community. We have NGOs, community-based organizations. We have elected officials. We have businesses. We have youth in there. And we're looking to identify what the issues are specific to those neighborhoods. Right now, a lot of it's things for the youth to do, specifically between that time when they get out of school and from when it's time to go back home. So we're going to try to fill that void. We're working with the NGOs to see if we can fill that gap. The NYPD's got a lot of programs. We got the Explorer program. We got the Youth Academy program. But you know, we're not going to be able to scale that up to fill the total need. So we're looking for this to be a community-based operation moving forward, and hopefully that'll continue to drive crime down. Rich?
So, on these individuals that are getting out on bail, you said it seems like the Brooklyn DA is on board, but whose job is it to educate the judges that are apparently letting them out the door?
A judge acts individually. They don't have there is no oversight. They have their ability to make a decision on their own. So certain judges may rule one way, other judges rule another. And there is no...
Yeah, I just want a friendly amendment that. I mean, there is oversight within the Office of Court Administration. We don't control the Office of Court Administration. State, obviously, everything goes up to Judge DiFiore ultimately. But I think Chief Monahan's point is well taken. You know, the vast majority of what you see is based on individual judge decision making. That said, to reference the point the commissioner made before, I think we want to empower judges to have additional tools. One of the things I talked about in my testimony up in Albany in February was to ensure that judges have the right to take into account more than just flight risk. What's been talked about is dangerousness. There's other definitions out there as well, but to give judges tools beyond the narrow question of just flight risk. And I think that's important to get done. I think we have a good chance of getting that done by June up in Albany.
All right, off-topic police? Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner, is there any update in the sexual assault investigation against Christoph Porzingis? His lawyer is claiming the complainant made extortion demands.
Dermot? Chief Shea will answer that.
Regarding that particular investigation, as I said yesterday, we are aware of the complaint. There is an investigation that is underway by our special victims investigators, and beyond that, I won't have anything to say. It's ongoing.
John?
Did they have an incident in Brooklyn where a police officer hit by a drone at a funeral in the 6-6?
Yeah, this just happened a little while ago in the 6-6. I don't know, Rodney or Terry, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the people that was attending the service, excuse me, the drone apparently passed out of gas or whatever it is, and it landed on one of the officers' heads. So at this time, nobody's being charged. The person that was operating the drone is being looked at, but at this time, nobody's being charged for that incident.
We also had a police officer that was injured by one of the cars in the funeral procession, a possible broken ankle. Dean?
Just to clarify, so that's the officer who was injured, was he hit by a car in the procession?
There's two things that happened. There was a drone that came out of the sky, hit a police officer, I think minor injuries, and there was a police officer that was injured by a car in the funeral procession. Not sure the extent, not likely, but it looks like he might have a broken ankle. Yes.
On the Vetrano verdict yesterday and some of the things that have come out during the trial, wanted to ask about how investigators went from initially suspecting two white men in the crime to suspecting someone who was black.
Yeah, Ernie, I don't know if you want to talk about that, or Dermot.
Obviously, the whole Vetrano situation is tragic. There was a conviction after trial, but there are going to be post-trial motions, there are going to be appeals, and anything that the NYPD might affect those appeals, so therefore, I don't think it's appropriate for us to comment on it.
Can you tell us anything about what controls were in place or what system was in place when the NYPD swabbed so many people for DNA?
I'm going to defer to Commissioner Hart once again.
Again, I don't want to get into any of the specifics because, as you know, anything that we say can affect post-trial motions. The case isn't over yet. The defendant has not been sentenced. There are 30 there are post-trial motions, and there'll be an appeal. So I don't think the NYPD should get into any of that.
Any other off topic? Dean, for the fifth time?
10 times for me.
Okay.
The 7-5 precinct, that horrible case that Chief Shea spoke about last week. Any update on that? Are you still looking for folks in that gang-related?
Dermot, you might as well just stay in that seat.
Yeah, Dean, there has been as I said yesterday, a significant amount of progress in that case. We have arrested and charged one individual with murder 2. We have an additional several suspects that are currently in custody and awaiting charges, and we are working very closely with the Brooklyn DA's office. I'd just like to thank first and foremost, the detectives that have been working literally around the clock since that terrible incident took place, as well as the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, who have been there with us hand in hand, tirelessly working. This was a tough incident to watch. I've watched that video and multiple videos that have come out since then. I was disgusted, quite frankly, by what I saw. The lack of regard for human life, as people are joking as somebody was chased down on the New York City street. So you can rest assured that anyone, I put out 10 pictures last week. We are making very significant progress on identifying all 10. I want to thank the public. We have received a large amount of tips from the community that from people that are equally disgusted by gang violence on the streets of Brooklyn.
Any other off topic? All right, if not, Gloria?
Sure. Has there been a change in how you're applying the 50A law? And whether or not you're going to be releasing disciplinary records?
Well, right now, as I stated in an op-ed, I guess it's about a month and a half ago, we're looking to release officer's name, the charge, the disposition, and the documentation. That's the position that we're taking, and we're working through City Hall and Albany to modify 50A, not to repeal it. Just before I stop, I didn't do this. Sorry about that, John. John Schell is the commanding officer of the 7-5 precinct. He's been here two and a half years. I just want to thank you for all the great work that you do with the community each and every day. I know you got a little increase in violence this year so far, but the work the cops do in the 7-5 is outstanding. So, and thank you for that. And thanks for being here.
And I want to add, you get a lot of compliments from elected officials and community leaders who appreciate the dialogue that you are constantly having with them. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, everybody. Take a quick break.
If you don't want it, thank you. Have one, get some donuts. Yeah. Thank you.